Dark Souls 3 now runs at 60 frames per second on the Xbox Series X and S, but there is a catch. Stay with me. Backwards compatibility and smart delivery have been a cornerstone in the Xbox strategy. They have the best backwards compatibility, period. All of your old games that you purchased in the past digitally just show up in your queue. And by way of smart delivery, they're giving you free upgrades. And you're getting one here with Dark Souls 3. The game now runs at 60 frames per second locked, but there is a catch. While on the PS5, through backwards compatibility, Dark Souls 3 runs at 1080p 60 frames per second. On the Xbox Series X and S, it is locked to 900p 60 frames per second. So what's going on here? I don't think there's a doubt that the Xbox Series X is more than capable of keeping up with the PlayStation 5. So a 1080p 60 frames per second last generation game upgraded should definitely be 1080p 60 frames per second on the Xbox Series X. However, its little brother, the Xbox Series S, is a factor in this, and we know Microsoft wants the Xbox Series S to play the same games that the Xbox Series X does. So, with much less RAM, much less capability, the output is probably 900p 60 frames per second. To get that 60 frames per second on that Xbox Series S, the resolution probably had to be lowered, and by default, the Xbox Series X is going to suffer. There's no way around that. And this is an example of it happening. Now, of course, there can be a patch in the future that raises the resolution on the Xbox Series X to say 1080p, and maybe the Xbox Series S stays at 900p, but of course upscales to 1440p. But right now, when we factor in that Xbox Series S to every equation that has to do with the Xbox Series X, it does seem like the big brother has to take care of the little brother at the expense of his own health. Now, right now, this is a last generation game, so it's not that big a deal. However, the Souls fan base is ravenous, and they're going to eat this up. And of course, the best experience right now is on the PlayStation 5 at 1080p 60 frames per second. But the real question I have is, if Microsoft wants the difference between games that are part of the backwards compatibility program, last generation games, to not be that pronounced, so 900p 60, 900p 60, they want the experience to feel like the same for consumers who either buy the X or the S. What happens when these next generation games designed from the ground up for the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5 come out? Will there be that big of a difference between the X and the S versions? Will Microsoft allow for that big of a difference between the X and the S version? Because it's the same consumer to them in the same ecosystem, and you don't want a next generation game to be 900p on the S and native 4K on the X. People are going to feel like they're being left out in that ecosystem. So you're seeing it here, 900p 60, 900p 60, but the PlayStation 5, there are two SKUs, the exact same hardware, just one digital and one physical. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Like, subscribe, share out, and I will see you in the next video.